last week's guest and the topic that we discussed. I have my cast with me today, Carlos Ponce and Laura Frimbres, who's joining us. And we're going to recap 5 key points that we took away from last week's conversation. So please welcome my fellow hosts. Let's see if we can get this done in 10 minutes, guys. So there were 5 things that stood out from our conversation last week, specifically about the role that the private sector can have towards more sustainability in the use of energy, right? We often talk about how the government needs to solve this problem, but it was an interesting argument and conversation around the role of the private sector. And I found it really fascinating, number one, that when we talk about sustainability, we often consider it as an issue of like, how do we get off dependency on coal or oil and use solar energy and wind energy? But there's also another element that's not often discussed, which is accessibility. There are billions of peoples in the world that don't have access to regular electricity like we do in the Western world. There's these constant rolling brownouts, which could be considered dangerous for people in terms of, a family with young children, for example, can't warm up food because they have no electricity for days. So I found it very fascinating that these are real issues that are facing society today. And instead of thinking about what is the government doing about it, the private sector can do its role. So what did you guys think about that? Did that stand out for you guys as well?
Yeah, Tulu, it certainly did. And I think that's a lot of people might think that it's something that is relevant only to developing nations, but it's really not. It's also in the developed world, something that goes on in the developed world. As the guests that we had last year mentioned, and I think it has a lot of corners, so to speak, because there are a lot of interests. When you're trying to develop a specific technology, you want to put it in everyone's hands, but there are some things that might get in the way. We're not getting too political about the topic, but still, it's about becoming aware that there's a need to, if we're to survive as a species, then we just need to make sure that we get more sustainable technology in the hands of everybody. Okay, and that might come with a price tag. So we know that. But how much are we willing as a society to work towards that? I think that's the challenging part. And I think that that's my personal take on the subject.
I have to say it was very difficult to have the conversation and not get political about it.
Yeah.
We gave guidance to our guests. Let's keep this apolitical. Let's not, get into that sphere conversation. But it was very difficult to not get political about it because it's a real issue. And but I was encouraged with this idea that if it matters so much to everyone and all of us, then we should do something about it, and the private sector should participate. I think that came loud and clear. And the idea that solar energy is free, right? There's solar energy, wind energy. There's a lot more that can be done to look at alternative sources of energy that are sustainable. And as a private sector, deploy those. Like use that in your, how you power up your office buildings and so on and so forth. So I was encouraged to hear that there's a bit of a push towards trying to get the private sector involved instead of waiting for someone at the higher ups to make these decisions. Laura, what stood out for you?
Yeah, I think on what you're saying about the solar energy being free, I think it's a win-win situation because you are actually helping the planet. You're also saving money. At first, it cannot be the cheapest option to have at your office, at your house, but at the end of the day, I think it's like a win-win situation for everyone and for you. You're talking about money, right? So something that really stood out for me was that the part of it's not just about sustainability, it's also about access and the lack of access. you think that you need to do something to improve or to be more sustainable, but there are some countries that don't even have energy, so to speak. So
Yeah, that's very heartbreaking. I mean, 3 billion people are affected by the fact that they may not have regular access to electricity or lighting like we do in the rest of the world. It's interesting. I did a little more digging into this. The cost of some of these sustainable technologies are not necessarily more expensive because it costs more to produce these technologies. It's because of patents that have been locked out, that have locked out these technology for the most part, that are in many cases patents that are being held by companies that are not going to gain much from moving into a more sustainable environment. And that's really, honestly, that's very sad that is the case. And again, it's very difficult not to get political about this, but at the end of the day, we all bear responsibility to make better choices. Use lighting in the house that doesn't require, be more green, be more efficient, and keep in mind that there are people in this world who are not getting access like the rest of us. And if that's something that matters to us, maybe we should get involved and look for opportunities to volunteer, to make a difference, to do something about that, because that is, unfortunately, half of the population lives in conditions where they're not experiencing the same benefits of having access to electricity and lighting and all the things, all the comforts we're used to on a regular basis.
That's right, Tulio.
Anything else stood out for you, Carlos, while we were talking with them?
Well, I guess that one of the key points that was mentioned, or that I think is important, is just don't wait. Don't wait for the government to do things. You can start small, right from your home, and it's all about a vision. It's all about fostering whatever an individual can do at the personal level, and then at the family level, at the community level, in a private way. But we don't. The bottom line is just don't wait for anyone or for the government, much less for the government to do what needs to be done in order to pursue sustainability and sustainable technology. I think that's another takeaway on my end.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, what's required is for all of us to play a part in being change agents, and the private sector can do a lot more to push this agenda forward. And it's about time. Just think about some of the largest companies in the world, the amount of resources they have available, even in funding. They could be doing a lot more, and that came out very loud and clear on the show. So doing good is the right way to do business. So that would be a good wrap up for us. Before we wrap up, I just want to say, if any one of you watching this, if you want to participate on the recap show, we'd love to have other people on the recap show. We created this so that it's not just us talking on the show, but getting actually feedback from audience members. All you have to do is watch Dojo Live on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. There's many ways you can watch it. You can watch it on our website. You can watch it on LinkedIn Live, on Facebook Live, on Twitter Live, on YouTube, on Twitch. So there's plenty of opportunities for you to watch it. And all you need to do is just recap and come up with 4 or 5 key points that you took away from the show, and just send those to any one of us. Send it to Carlos, myself, email us. There's a million ways you can reach out to us, DM us, and just give us those points, and we will pick 1 or 2 people randomly to participate. And you'll get 10 minutes of fame here on LinkedIn Live or wherever else you're watching. So please join us. And what's coming up Wednesday for our next Dojo Live, Carlos?
For our next Dojo Live, we are going to be having a conversation with, I'll tell you right now in a minute, with Kristen McCann Flynn, the founder and CEO of GoCoach.com. This is going to be interesting because it's about it's very Dojo Live oriented. It's a culture of learning, or how to create a culture of learning within an organization. So that should be interesting, and that's going to be happening this Wednesday, which is in a couple of days, 1 p.m. Pacific. A culture of learning with Kristen McCann Flynn, founder and CEO of GoCoach.
I'm looking forward to that show. Everyone, thanks for joining us today. We'll talk to you soon.
Talk soon. Thank you, everyone.